You don't break because life is hard. You break because you never learned how to use what hurts you. What if I told you the same pain you're trying to escape is actually the thing that could make you dangerous? Right now, there's something on your mind, something you keep going back to. Maybe it's a mistake you made, something you said, something you shouldn't have said. Maybe it's rejection. You didn't get the position. They didn't choose you. They moved forward without you, and you still don't fully understand why. Or maybe nothing specific happened, just a slow build of pressure, stress, frustration, the specific kind of mental noise that doesn't have a clean source but has a very clear weight. And without realizing it, you're carrying it every single day. You distract yourself, you stay busy, you find the next thing to complete, the next thing to consume, the next thing to move toward, so that you don't have to sit with what's sitting with you. But when everything goes quiet, it's still there. That weight you feel, that's not just pain. That's something you haven't learned how to use yet. And if you don't learn, it won't just stay pain. It turns into doubt, then hesitation, then a version of you that plays smaller than it should, smaller than it could, smaller than it was built to be. Stop. That doesn't have to be you. Tonight we're not talking about motivation, not stay positive, not empty advice dressed up in language that sounds meaningful and disappears the moment the pressure is real. We're talking about something practical, something that works when the weight is genuine and the situation is difficult and nobody is watching, and you have to decide what you're actually made of without an audience and without a safety net. How to take pain and turn it into control. Discipline, clarity. Because here's the truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. If you don't learn how to use pain, you will spend your life reacting to it. And people who react lose control. Not occasionally, consistently, in the small moments, in the decisions that define them, in the rooms that matter and the relationships that count and the opportunities that required a version of them they hadn't built yet. And they wonder, usually quietly, usually late, why the outcomes never quite matched the effort. By the end of this, you'll know exactly how to take anything that hits you. Stress, rejection, pressure, loss, failure, the slow build of something you haven't been able to name, and turn it into something that builds you. But first, you need to understand this. Pain is not your problem. What you do with it is. Most people try to escape pain. That's exactly why they stay stuck. Not because they're weak, not because they lack intelligence or drive or the desire to change, because they were never taught that pain has a second function. The first function is obvious. It signals damage. Something went wrong, something was lost, something didn't work the way it was supposed to. The second function, the one almost nobody knows how to access, pain is information. Not about what happened to you, about what you need to build. Seneca understood this from the inside of genuine difficulty. Exiled from Rome by an emperor on a charge he knew was fabricated, stripped of everything he had built, separated from the world he had operated inside for decades, and from inside that loss, from the specific experience of having everything external removed, he wrote something that has outlasted every person and every empire that was involved in taking it from him. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Let that become precise. Something goes wrong, a real thing, a genuine setback, a loss that actually happened, and your mind doesn't just register the reality. It immediately starts building a story around the reality. What this means, what comes next, what this says about you, what you should have done differently, what other people are thinking, what the future now looks like. And every layer of that story is suffering you are generating on top of pain that already existed. The event creates pain. Your interpretation creates suffering. And suffering, unlike pain, has no natural endpoint. It runs for as long as you feed it. So instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" ask something better. How can I use this? That question is a switch. It moves you from passive to active, from victim of the circumstance to architect of the response. Obstacles become pressure. Pressure becomes training. Failure becomes information. Information becomes precision. Chaos becomes clarity. Pain becomes power. When you stop avoiding it and start using it. These are the 10 habits that make that possible. Habit number 1. Make pain your compass, not your cage. Most people run from pain the moment it arrives, and that instinct, that deeply wired, completely understandable instinct, is exactly what keeps them circling the same place for years. Because pain is not a signal to retreat. It's a signal to pay attention. Think about what pain actually does in the physical world. When something in your body hurts, a real, specific, located pain, you don't ignore it. You don't perform your way through it pretending it's not there. You locate it. You examine it. You let it tell you exactly where the problem is and what it needs. Pain is the body's most precise navigation system. And emotional pain, the kind that keeps you awake, the kind that surfaces in the quiet, the kind that has been sitting with you longer than you've admitted, works identically. It's not random. It's not punishment. It's not evidence that something is permanently wrong with you. It's pointing at something specific, something that needs attention, something that needs building, something that has been either neglected or broken that your life is now requiring you to address. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult." Most people make pain a cage. They build their entire life around avoiding the specific discomfort that is actually trying to show them something. They stay in situations that don't serve them because leaving would hurt. They avoid decisions that would move them forward because the uncertainty is painful. They circle the same patterns year after year because confronting them requires walking toward the thing they've spent years walking away from. And the pain grows. Not because more bad things happened, because the same unaddressed thing keeps generating the same signal, louder each time, trying to get the attention it has never received. General William Tecumseh Sherman marched his army 285 miles through the heart of Confederate territory in what became known as the March to the Sea. Every military advisor said the plan was too dangerous, too exposed, too far from supply lines, too deep into pain to guarantee survival. And Sherman looked at exactly what made the mission most frightening: the exposure, the isolation, the distance from safety, and used it as his compass. He moved toward precisely the thing that made everyone else hesitate, not because he was reckless, because he understood that the most uncomfortable direction was often the most necessary one, and that the pain of avoiding it would always be greater than the pain of going through it. Think about where your pain is pointing right now, not the surface discomfort. The specific, recurring, won't-go-away signal that has been trying to navigate you toward something you keep refusing to face. The conversation you haven't had, the decision you haven't made, the direction you know is right but haven't taken because taking it means going through something that feels like it might break you. It won't break you. The avoiding is what breaks you. Pain used as a compass shows you exactly where to go next. Pain used as a cage keeps you exactly where you've always been. The difference is not the pain, it's what you decide it's for. Habit number 2, accept reality fast. Most people waste enormous amounts of energy fighting what already happened. This shouldn't have happened, this isn't fair, this wasn't the plan. And every one of those statements might be completely true. It might genuinely not have been fair. The plan might have been entirely reasonable. What happened might have been objectively wrong. And none of that changes the reality by a single degree. Seneca wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant." You are going to move forward. The only question is whether you move on your own terms or whether reality drags you there while you're still arguing with what already happened. You get rejected from something that mattered, something you prepared for, something you deserved to get, and you replay it, not once, again and again, looking for the moment it went wrong, looking for the version where it goes differently, looking for the explanation that makes the outcome feel less final. But the replay doesn't change the outcome. Every hour spent inside the replay is an hour not spent building what comes next. Acceptance is not surrender. Acceptance is the specific decision to stop spending energy on what cannot be changed and redirect it entirely to what can. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery commanded the British Eighth Army at a point when it had been suffering repeated defeats and the morale of the force had been severely damaged. The situation as he inherited it was objectively poor. The previous failures were real. The damage to confidence was real. The scale of what he was facing was not something to deny, and Montgomery didn't deny it. He assessed it exactly as it was. He accepted the reality of the position completely and without softening. And then, from that clear-eyed acceptance, he built the strategy that reversed it. The victory at El Alamein didn't come from pretending the previous losses hadn't happened. It came from someone who accepted them fully and then refused to stay inside them. Accept, adapt, move. The faster you accept reality, the faster you move forward. The faster you move forward, the less time pain has to become permanent. Habit number 3, take full responsibility. You cannot control everything that happens to you, but you always, without exception, control what you do next. Most people avoid this truth, not because they don't understand it, because accepting it removes the comfort of excuses. And excuses, however small, however justified, however completely reasonable given the circumstances, are expensive. They cost you agency. The belief that your actions matter, that what you choose has a real effect on what happens next, that the outcome is at least partially determined by you. The moment you give that up, even partially, even temporarily, you've handed the steering wheel to the circumstances, and circumstances have no interest in where you're trying to go. Admiral James Stockdale spent over 7 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam. The senior American military officer held at the Hanoi Hilton, tortured repeatedly, held in conditions designed specifically to break the identity and the will of the person inside them. And Stockdale took full responsibility for who he became inside the conditions he could not control, not for the injustice, not for the torture, for his response, for the person he chose to be in the space between what was being done to him and what he did about it. He said afterward, "I never lost faith in the end of the story. I never doubted not only that I would get out, but also that I would prevail in the end." That faith wasn't passive optimism. It was the product of someone who had decided that his response was his, regardless of what the circumstances were. That distinction between what was done to you and what you own is the entire distance between a person who is permanently damaged by pain and a person who is permanently forged by it. Responsibility doesn't mean you cause the pain. It means you own the response, and owning the response is power. Habit number 4, turn pain into training. Most people try to escape pain. The strongest people you will ever encounter do something completely different. They use it. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." The body doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in resistance, in the specific moment of being pushed past what was previously possible, in the strain that feels like damage but is actually adaptation. The mind works identically. Every difficult situation you move through rather than around, every pressure you engage with rather than escape from, is training. Not metaphorical training, literal neurological adaptation to conditions of difficulty. You are becoming more capable of handling exactly this kind of pressure by handling exactly this kind of pressure. General Chesty Puller, the most decorated Marine in the history of the United States Marine Corps, didn't build one of the most formidable combat records in American military history from a position of comfort. He built it from inside one hard situation after another. At the Battle of Chosin Reservoir, surrounded, outnumbered, operating in temperatures that made the equipment fail, he looked at the situation and said, "We're surrounded." That simplifies the problem. not denial, not performance. The genuine perspective of someone who had trained in enough difficulty that the shape of difficulty no longer produced panic. It produced clarity, because he had used every previous hard situation as training for the next one. Pain is resistance. Resistance builds strength. The only question is whether you treat the resistance as something to escape or something to train inside. Habit number 5, stop asking why me. That question, why me, is the most expensive question a person can ask, not because the feeling behind it is invalid, not because the situation that produced it wasn't real, because it points you in the wrong direction. Why me makes you passive. It positions you as the subject of forces that are happening around you and to you, rather than someone who moves through forces by decision. It turns you into someone waiting for the situation to become fair before moving. And situations don't become fair because you're waiting. They become irrelevant because you moved anyway. Replace the question, not with false positivity, not with the performance of someone who is fine when they're not, with a better question. What does this require from me? That question is directional. It assumes you have something to give. It assumes your actions matter. It assumes that what happens next is at least partially within your influence. General George Patton didn't wait for conditions to become favorable before moving. He moved inside the conditions he had, not the ones he wished for. His entire command philosophy was built around a single belief. A good plan executed violently now is better than a perfect plan executed too late. Why me is waiting for the perfect plan. What does this require from me is executing the good one right now. Motion, even imperfect, uncertain, incomplete motion, is the only thing that has ever moved anyone out of the place they were stuck. Understanding these ideas is one thing. Living them daily is something else entirely. Because in the moment, when the emotion hits, when the pressure builds, when the weight of everything lands at the same time, that's when most people fall back into the old patterns. Not because they forgot, because the understanding was never built into a system. If you want help actually applying this, I've put together 3 specific systems. Unshakable mental discipline, the 30-day mental discipline system, and the daily Stoic reset. Not more information, daily structure. The specific practice that builds these habits into how you actually operate. Not just how you think about operating. All 3 are in the description. Now, let's keep going. Habit number 6. Control your emotions or they will control you. You don't lose control all at once. You lose it in moments. A moment of anger that produced a decision you're still paying for. A moment of frustration that changed a relationship you valued. A moment where what you felt decided what you did. And what you did created a consequence that outlasted the feeling by years. That's the real trap, not the pain. Losing yourself because of it. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." You're angry, not mildly frustrated, genuinely angry. The kind that has physical weight to it. The kind where the response is already constructed and every instinct says it's not just justified, it's necessary. And for a moment it feels like not responding would be its own kind of failure. And you pause, not to suppress it, not to perform composure, to watch it, to separate the feeling from the identity, to observe the emotion as something that arrived rather than something you are. Admiral William McRaven commanded the Joint Special Operations Command and oversaw some of the most high-pressure decision environments in modern military history. And he spoke specifically about the quality that separated the operators who performed under the most extreme pressure from those who didn't. Not strength, not speed, not aggression, emotional regulation, the specific trained ability to feel the full weight of an extreme situation and still make the decision from a place of clarity rather than reaction. He built his entire framework for leadership around one foundational truth. If you want to change the world, start by making your bed. Not because making a bed matters, because the discipline of doing the small thing correctly when no one is watching builds the emotional infrastructure to do the large thing correctly when everything is watching. Emotions are temporary. Decisions last. If you don't control your emotions, they will control your future. Habit number 7, endure without complaining. This one sounds simple, and it exposes everything, because complaining feels like release. It feels productive, like you're doing something about the pressure, acknowledging it, naming it, redistributing it somehow by putting it into words. But here's what complaining actually does. It trains your mind to believe that what you're facing is bigger than you. Every time you complain, you reinforce the story that the situation holds power over you that you do not hold over it. Seneca wrote, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests strong men." The test doesn't care whether you found it fair. It reveals what you're actually made of. You're overwhelmed. The volume of what's in front of you is genuinely demanding. You have two options: complain and feel temporarily relieved while training your mind that this is too much, or execute and build the specific evidence that you can handle more than you thought. One choice feels better in the moment. One makes you stronger permanently. The soldiers of the 101st Airborne Division at Bastogne in 1944, surrounded by German forces in the middle of winter, ammunition running low, temperature dropping, were asked by the German command to surrender. General Anthony McAuliffe's response was a single word: nuts. Not a detailed explanation of why the conditions were difficult. Not a list of grievances about what they were facing. One word, and then they held. Because the soldiers who endure the most extreme conditions don't do it by wishing the conditions were different. They adjust, they execute, they endure. Your standards show up the most when things are hardest. That's where they either mean something or reveal they never did. Habit number 8, extract lessons from everything. Most people go through pain and come out unchanged. Not because the pain wasn't sufficient, not because they weren't capable of learning, because they never studied it. They moved past it as quickly as possible. They created distance. They treated the pain as something to survive, not something to examine. Pain is information, but only if you treat it as information. You fail at something that genuinely mattered, and every instinct says, move away from it. Get distance. Find the next thing before this one settles too completely. But here's what that cost you. You repeat it. Not immediately. Not obviously. The same pattern that produced the failure remains intact, untouched, ready to produce the same outcome in slightly different conditions. The stronger approach, you sit with it, not to punish yourself, not to marinate in what went wrong, to extract the specific information that the failure is carrying. What exactly went wrong? Not generally. Specifically, what did I not see that I should have? What would I do differently? General Dwight Eisenhower conducted detailed after-action reviews of every significant military operation, including the ones that went wrong, especially the ones that went wrong, not to assign blame, not to dwell in the loss, to extract the precise operational lessons that would make the next decision more accurate than the last. He treated military failure not as evidence that something couldn't be done, but as exact information about what hadn't worked, which narrowed the distance to what would. That's not resilience, that's methodology. If you don't learn from pain, you're just experiencing it for nothing. And pain experienced for nothing is suffering. Pain examined and applied is preparation. Habit number 9, build internal confidence. Not the loud version, not the performed version that needs the room's attention to remain intact, not the kind that depends on external confirmation, that requires approval, validation, recognition to stay active. Real confidence, the kind that doesn't require anyone else's opinion to exist, the kind built from the accumulated evidence of your own experience, from knowing, at the level below thought, at the level of lived experience. I've been through worse, and I handled it, not perfectly, not without cost, but I handled it. and I'm still here. That knowledge cannot be borrowed, cannot be given, cannot arrive through someone else's belief in you. It can only be built through your own experience of going through something genuinely difficult and coming out still standing on the other side. Which means, difficulty is not the enemy of confidence. It's the only raw material confidence is actually built from. General William Slim commanded the Burma campaign, widely considered the most difficult land campaign the British Army fought in the Second World War, retreating through impossible terrain, supply lines failing, disease taking soldiers before combat could, and the quality his soldiers described consistently and repeatedly was not tactical brilliance. It was his visible certainty that they would prevail, not performance, not the forced confidence of a leader who needed his troops to believe something he didn't believe himself. The genuine certainty of someone who had been tested so many times in so many difficult conditions that difficulty itself had become familiar territory. He had built confidence from the inside by moving through enough hardship to know, at the deepest possible level, that he could move through more. You walk into a difficult situation, not comfortable, not certain of the outcome, but you've been tested before. You know what it feels like to be uncertain and still act, to be uncomfortable and still move. And that knowledge, built through your own genuine experience, not borrowed from anywhere else, stays. When everything else is stripped away, it stays. Habit number 10. Remember, pain is temporary. When you're inside it, pain feels permanent, not like it might last a while, like it will never end, like this is now the condition you inhabit, indefinitely without exit. And that feeling, specific, false, completely convincing, is what makes pain most destructive. Not the pain itself, the belief that it's permanent, because that belief changes your relationship to everything. It turns temporary difficulty into permanent identity. It turns a hard season into a permanent story about who you are. It turns something you're going through into something you are. And you're not. You're going through it. Winston Churchill navigated some of the most catastrophic military defeats of the Second World War: Dunkirk, the fall of Singapore, the loss of Tobruk, all while maintaining the public posture and private discipline of someone who understood that the current moment was not the final one. Not because he was immune to the weight, not because the losses didn't reach him, because he had developed through decades of political defeat, public humiliation, and personal difficulty before the war, the specific understanding that no dark season is the last season. He said, "If you're going through hell, keep going." Not because it stops being hell immediately, because stopping inside it is the only way it becomes permanent. Pain fades. What you build while moving through it stays. So the question isn't whether this will hurt. It will. The question is, will I use it? That single shift from will this hurt to will I use this is the entire difference between pain that destroys and pain that builds. Let's bring this back to you. Right now, there's something in your life that feels heavy. Not theoretically heavy, actually heavy. The specific weight of something real that is genuinely difficult and has been sitting with you longer than you would choose. And you have two choices. You can keep avoiding it, keep moving past it without studying it, keep letting it drain you in the background of everything else you're trying to build, and slowly it turns into doubt, then hesitation, then a version of you that is measurably smaller than the version that existed before the pain arrived. Or you can use it. You can take that same pressure, the weight that has been sitting with you, the difficulty that has been testing you, the loss that has been reshaping you, and you can decide what it's for. Not what it is, what it's for. Because pain, met with the 10 habits you now carry, doesn't stay pain. It becomes the specific material from which something durable is built. Discipline, clarity, control, the kind of internal strength that was never going to come from a comfortable life or a smooth path or a version of events where nothing was ever taken from you. Because pain doesn't decide who you become. You do, and the people who learn how to use it, they don't just survive what comes at them. They become dangerous because of it. If this hit you, don't just move on. Use it. Take one thing from what you just heard, one habit, one question, one reframe, and apply it to the specific thing that's in front of you today. Not later, not when the conditions are better. Now. And if you're serious about becoming stronger, comment 2 words, still standing. That's not for me, that's for you. Proof that no matter what you're dealing with, no matter what the weight is, no matter how long it's been there, no matter how many times you've gone back to it, you're still here, still moving, still building. And that's where real strength starts. Subscribe for weekly content that meets you where the difficulty actually is. Unshakable mental discipline, the 30-day mental discipline system, and the daily Stoic reset pack. All in the description. Next, everything we covered tonight is the foundation. But there's one specific thing that undoes all of it when you're not watching. What you tell yourself about yourself when nobody is listening. That video is next. Link in the description. Pain becomes power when you stop avoiding it and start using it. Start tonight.